Kurt, you'll also need to record. Never mind, I can.
Good evening, and welcome to the St. Louis County Family Court Juvenile Division presentation on Raise the Age. I am Sandra Farragut Hemphill, the Administrative Judge of the Family Court of St. Louis County. Effective January 1, 2021, our court began accepting 17-year-olds charged with criminal offenses. The court decided to take this step in spite of the lack of funding that was associated with us accepting these additional cases. I am happy to report, however, that recently the Missouri legislature has addressed some of the issues that was presented with the initial legislation that was passed a few years ago, and we are now waiting on the governor to sign the bill which raises the age in Missouri. The other good news is that the new law has what is known as an emergency clause, which means that as soon as the governor signs it, it becomes law in Missouri. Our objective for today's session is to provide you with an overview of this legislation. Today's presenters will provide you with different perspectives of the impact that this legislation will have on the court and on 17-year-olds in our community. We encourage you to ask questions and to share your thoughts with us. We took this step of accepting 17-year-olds well in advance of the new legislation because we believed it was the right thing to do. One of our goals as a court is to ensure that we remain committed to keeping our community informed of the court's operations. And this is the purpose for this forum this evening. So on behalf of the St. Louis County Family Court Juvenile Division, I want to thank you for participating here this evening. I'm now going to introduce to you our moderator, Sarah Fenske, former editor of the Riverfront Times. However, she is the current host and producer of St. Louis Public Radio's weekday current events program called St. Louis on the Air. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Fenske. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here virtually for this special town hall conversation. We are here to discuss the impact of Missouri's Raise the Age legislation on St. Louis County families, on the juvenile justice system, and on the community at large. There are 6 speakers on our panel this evening, each with a different perspective on this important legislation and what it means for youth in St. Louis County. Each panelist will have about 5 minutes to speak. I ask that you hold your questions until all the panelists have had a chance to make their comments. If you have a question or a comment, you can submit it at any time via the chat feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Please indicate if there's a specific person you would like to reply to your question. Otherwise, I'll just be choosing somebody to take it. Our first speaker this evening is Ben Burkemper, Administrator for the St. Louis County Family Court. He will give us some background on the history of the Raise the Age legislation and its current status. Our second panelist is Dr. Megan Schacht, Director of Family and Clinical Services for the Family Court. Dr. Schacht will explain the biology of adolescent brain development and how it impacts teens' decision-making. Our third speaker is Rick Gaines, Chief Juvenile Officer for the St. Louis County Family Court. Rick will give an overview of the ways in which the Raise the Age legislation will affect the juvenile court system. Our fourth speaker is Captain Guy Means, Commander of the Afton Southwest Precinct for the St. Louis County Police Department. He will share his view of the Raise the Age legislation from the perspective of law enforcement. Our fifth speaker is Reverend Roderick K. Burton. Reverend Burton is the senior pastor of the historic New Northside Missionary Baptist Church in St. Louis. He's also a member of the St. Louis Metropolitan Clergy Coalition, the Ecumenical Leadership Council, and the Interfaith Partnership of Greater St. Louis. He will address the resources needed in the community to help adolescents, especially those who may be at risk of involvement in the criminal justice system. Our sixth speaker is Mariah Walker. Mariah is currently a student at a historically Black college or university studying computer science. She is one of the many success stories of the family court and will speak to her experience with the court as a young teen. And finally, our seventh speaker is Mariah's mom, Nishi Parkinson. Ms. Parkinson was a fierce and tireless advocate for Mariah when she was involved in the juvenile court system. So those are our panelists. Ben, I'm going to ask you to please start us off, and I will try to let you know when you have about 1 minute left to speak. So Ben, take it from here.
Thank you, Sarah. I want to thank you and as a member of the media community for being part of this presentation this evening. And I also want to thank the community, especially community, for taking the interest for this very important development regarding the youth and the community in which they live. So when we talk about raise the age, I don't want to make assumptions, and it's something that the court's been obsessed with for the last 2 years or so. And so I wanted to just give a little bit of a background. So raise the age means that for prior legislation or prior jurisdiction is the juvenile court had exclusive jurisdiction over juveniles 16 years of age and younger. When we talk about raise the age, we're talking about bringing 17-year-olds into that fold. So 17-year-olds will no longer be part of the adult system. So with that said, the history of raise the age in Missouri started in 2018. Well, the bill that finally passed was in 2018, but there was many attempts before that. After several years, the bill passed the Missouri legislature and was signed by the governor that summer. The law would become effective on, as Judge Hemphill eloquently said, on January 1st of 2021. So at the time, I think we were only one of 4 or 5 states who did not have this legislation in place at the time in 2018. That original bill contained some ambiguous provisions regarding its effectiveness, which led to different interpretations amongst the different circuits and counties in the state. Judge Hemphill made allusions to that. St. Louis County at the time, on January 1st, was one of 5 or 6 jurisdictions in the state which started accepting 17-year-olds as referrals. During this past legislative session, a bill to clear up a lot of those ambiguities, particularly those provisions that had to deal with funding, was cleared up and repealed. And that now, as Judge Hemphill indicated, is now sitting on the governor's desk waiting to be signed. We don't have a definite idea what the governor is going to do with it, but usually we get a better idea if he wasn't going to sign it, but we haven't received any signs about that. So we are crossing our fingers. So in the attempt that we would have clarity and the whole state would have clarity about accepting 17-year-olds into the juvenile court's jurisdiction. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben, for that. Next up is Dr. Schacht.
Good evening. So the reason that I've been asked to speak tonight is to talk a little bit about adolescent brain development. It's because it's essentially part of the underlying rationale for Raise the Age. We've come to recognize that there is a biological basis for including 17-year-olds in with juvenile court instead of in the adult criminal justice system. Science tells us that adolescent brains are different both structurally and in the chemicals they produce. The very last part of our brain to fully develop is the prefrontal cortex, the part of our brains responsible for little things like reasoning and impulse control and advanced thought. That doesn't fully mature until our mid-20s. So if the prefrontal cortex isn't running things for teenagers, let's talk about what is. The parts of the brain that mature earlier that drive thought processes and reasoning for teenagers are the emotional centers, which are notably include the amygdala, which processes emotions, including fear, and the ventral striatum, which is the reward center. We also have chemicals like the neurotransmitter dopamine, which influences memory and concentration and problem solving, which is not yet at its optimal level in adolescence. So we're going to talk about the amygdala first, because since we have that online before the prefrontal cortex, we have adolescents with a high capacity for fear and emotions without the ability to reason through and think about a situation rationally, to essentially learn when they should not be afraid about something. And without the ability to reason and think through situations, teenagers tend to misinterpret cues. They're quicker to read hostile intent and respond accordingly. Overall, their responses tend to be more emotionally laden. The reward center, or the ventral striatum, also matures earlier. So research has shown that it's not that teenagers aren't able to recognize risks. They do have the ability to correctly gauge if a situation is risky or not, but their reward center overrides their good judgment at the thought of a potentially pleasurable experience. It also draws them to more immediate rewards rather than being able to delay gratification to things down the road. So now we also run into the role that the amygdala plays in social behavior. So when teenagers are around their peers, the interaction between the amygdala and the reward center can cause things to really go off the rails. So to a certain extent, research has found little difference between teenagers and adults when it comes to making decisions about risky behaviors when we are alone. But when teenagers are in groups of peers, we know that they become much more likely to pay attention to the potential benefits of a risky choice and ignore potential costs. And it's because of their brain development. So as a society, we like clear, bright lines for identifying when things are age appropriate. We've decided when you're 13, you can see movies with occasional curse words and depictions of realistic violence. When you're 18, you're mature enough to join the military. When you're 21, we've decided you can handle alcohol. And when you're 35, you are finally mature enough to be president of the United States. But that's not how brain development works. And like all human development, it doesn't happen on an exact timeline, but in more of a developmental window. And then we add things like trauma and ADHD, which have their own implications for brain development and can further delay those windows. And we certainly know that both trauma and ADHD are much more prevalent among youth involved in juvenile justice, which makes even more sense when you consider its impact on brain development. Research has clearly shown that it's not negative consequences or punishments that change behavior, but restorative justice practices and accountability. And involvement in juvenile justice system allows youth opportunities for rehabilitation as well as participation in other age-appropriate programming, such as schools, so they have the opportunity to be held accountable as they develop into adults. So now I'm going to hand it off to Rick Gaines to talk more about the St. Louis County Juvenile Court System specifically.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon and good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. I am Rick Gaines, the Chief Juvenile Officer for St. Louis County. Proud to be here. But I would just want to start with just saying that the Family Court Juvenile Office takes a different approach when we talk about 17-year-olds coming to the juvenile court system compared to the adult court system. You know, the Family Court Juvenile Division, we really take an interest in not just the individual juvenile, the child, but we really work within the family unit. I think, and that's part of the difference when we talk about raise the age. These 17-year-olds no longer will be in the adult system, where the adult system, the prosecutor really primarily works with that individual offender. But in our world, as a juvenile court, juvenile office, we really work with the young offender and the family. And I think that's the major difference that we talk about in working with these kids in the juvenile court. I would just tell you, in our world, we really look at things of trying to divert kids from the system in general. And then we also talk about when a youth and family get to our system, how can we keep those young people from going deeper into our system? Because we know that if they go deeper into our system, ultimately they do end up in the general jurisdiction in the adult system. And that's what we try to prevent in our world. In working with the juvenile court, I would tell you this: St. Louis County's court-involved youth will have equitable access to resources in relationship to achieve educational success. We base a lot of our work on that statement by itself. We want our kids to be successful, have better outcomes when they reach our door, ultimately try to do everything that we can to avoid them from coming into our door, so that we know that if we can get resources and services in those communities where our kids are coming from, in those high zip codes, those zip codes that really create a lot of our referrals, if we can get services in competent cultural services and resources in those zip codes, we know that we're going to be successful with our kids. So when we talk about 17-year-olds coming to us, we know they're going to need different things compared to a 12 or 13-year-old. We're talking about different things for education. We're talking about different things for job training. We're talking about different things for getting them ready for the military, perhaps. So our office has done a really lot of research with our community partners to how can we get access and resources to those kids and families more so than what we used to do when we're talking about a 15 or 16-year-old. I want to put up some data here and share with you as we talk about this just a little bit as well. As we talk about the 17-year-olds in our system, statewide, compared to in the state of Missouri, last year, Raise the Age would prevent 306 new admissions going into the detention center or to the justice center, and 407 probationary each year for the state of Missouri. That's huge. What we know is that when these kids go into the arrest portion of this, their outcome or their trajectory continues to go down. And ultimately, these are the kids that goes into the Department of Corrections. As you can see on the second bullet, the Department of Corrections would say that they would save almost $14 million when Raise the Age would be implemented. That's a huge saving for the state of Missouri. And we also have been tracking this data since day one, January 1st, 2021, when we started receiving 17-year-olds. And to date, we've had 98 delinquent referrals of 17-year-olds, and 10 were admitted into our secure detention facility. And so when we talk about the impact of Raise the Age, I would tell you, first of all, our detention center has really seen the biggest impact so far. Right on average, we're averaging about 5 to 6 youth on average of 17-year-olds in our detention center. And again, these young people, they're going to make mistakes. They're going to make sometimes serious mistakes. But how can we work with those kids and families to have a better outcome, more so than if they were in the justice center, going through the adult corrections? How can we utilize our services and resources to, again, improve those services for our kids? In our world, in the juvenile world, we're able to do what we call an informal adjustment on kids, which means they don't go to the juvenile court. They're not made wards of a court in our system, but yet we're able to work with those kids voluntarily because they have said to us, we want to accept services and resources from the juvenile court in better things within our own family settings to improve outcomes for not only the child, but there could be younger siblings in the house. And so we impact the entire household, the family of the kids. And the work that we do truly starts with accountability. And accountability is always a little different for each case, but yet we really look at services and resources for kids and families. We're not in the business of just locking kids up and giving them years of incarceration, but we give them the opportunity to make changes in their life. And our staff enjoyed this work. And I gotta commend our staff in the detention center, court program, delinquency, child abuse and protection. All those folks really work hard and are committed to the work of working with young people and dedicated to make better outcomes for kids in St. Louis County. So I just would challenge you, if you're a part of our community partnership, if there's resources and things that you can offer to 17-year-olds that we haven't asked you to do, please reach out to us, because we are constantly looking for services and resources for our young people and families. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Next up is Captain Guy Means, a St. Louis County Police Commander.
Hey, hello everyone. My name is Captain Guy Means. I'm the commander of the Southwest Afton Precinct of St. Louis County. And I just want to give a little information as far as raise the age for what it does for law enforcement. Two of the main things for law enforcement, reference raise the age. The one thing that's going to be very important is will be where the offense allegedly occurred. So with that being said, is if we pick up the juvenile from a different location from other than St. Louis County, the main thing is to make sure that youth is taken to the right facility. Secondly is the time frame and date of the offense. So basically, if the offense occurred prior to January 1st, 2021, and that person was 17 at the time, then the date of the offense is what mandates the court in which it has the jurisdiction. So one thing about, let's make this very clear, is that why are we supporting raise the ages? It's basically three things. Is raising the age will improve public safety, it will treat families fairly, and better outcomes for vulnerability of young people. So with that being said, is that we want to make sure that the youth is treated fairly at the age of 17 and make sure that he or she is taken to the right court within St. Louis County. So raise the age is going to be very important. I think it's going to be a situation where I think families are going to have better outcomes. We'll provide better resources. We can help youth in need. And I think that in the long run, we'll look at a better community. And with that being said, that's just a small portion of raise the age for law enforcement. It's basically to make sure that the youth is getting into the right courts and in the right facility so that they can be treated fairly.
Thank you, Captain Means. We appreciate that perspective. Our next speaker is the Reverend Roderick K. Burton, the senior pastor of the historic New Northside Missionary Baptist Church in St. Louis.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak on this forum. This is an exciting day. What you've been hearing, if you've tuned in, is you're hearing about reforms. And so the community has been calling for reforms in the criminal justice system, and this is one of those reforms. What is required on our end, we've heard from Rick Gaines, we've heard from the courts that they're asking for help from the community to make successful outcomes for these 17-year-olds, for these youth. And so truly, the youth are our future. And so there needs to be investment of time, investment of money, investment of effort to make sure these things are successful. Well, how can we do that? I'm speaking from the faith community, and if your church, your synagogue, your mosque is not doing anything with regard to youth, you need to reach out to the St. Louis County court system and ask them what can you do, maybe share what resources you all have. Also, we want to reach out to the business community, because in addition to jobs, also mentoring opportunities, because these young people are going to go on and take positions in our society and work. And so what mentoring, what opportunities would you provide? Also, we need the collaboration and the coordination of the nonprofit community. And so reach out and call the United Way and ask them to coordinate the work of the many nonprofits that make up the United Way to reach out and surge resources into these zip codes that we know that data is telling us is sending people into the system. Also, if you're just an individual and you're hearing this, if you want to do your part, you too can reach out to the court system and ask them, what can we do to partner and to lift this up? This is a great opportunity. This is a great change. And so it's requiring us to be active. It's requiring us to be intentional. And it's also requiring us to, put our words, oftentimes we talk about young people and young people need to do this, young people need to do that. Well, guess what? We, those who have lived past 17, we need to help them to develop, help them to have the successful outcomes that our society needs. Hey, thank you very much. And God bless you.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Mariah Walker. Mariah, take it from here.
Hi everybody, I'm Mariah Walker. A little of my story is that I was in the juvenile system with Miss Rochelle because she was helping me with my case of what had happened with me during my trauma that I had during high school and everything. What helped me grow and become the person that I am to be able to be a sophomore in college was the resources that she gave me. She had a firefighter, I think, program it was that she was giving me. I was also in the UMSL Bridge program, and I got bus passes and everything to be able to go to help my mom, because during that time, it was during the summer, and my mom was going to work. So that helped as well. She taught me her and my mom taught me how to use the bus system as well, because I did not know how to use the bus system. I also was able, she's still in my life as well. I can always pick up the phone and call her. So that also helped as well. She's been to prom send-offs and everything, and still being in my life has also helped grow as a person. I call her when I'm in college, telling her my grades and everything. I am a 3.85 GPA for the Clark-Atlanta University. So I go to Clark-Atlanta University. And yeah, I just think more so I believe in the raise the age, because for the simple fact is, as us being kids, we get pressured into a lot of things in high school. It's not all just based off of just us, it's our peers, but also like I forgot her name, but she was the doctor. She was saying like we're not all there yet. We also need guidance and everything, but we all also think that we don't need help. We always think like they too old to be telling us what to do as well. And for any young person, it's okay to get feedback. Like I also was one of those people that didn't like feedback, but it also is for your greater good, because when you get into your career, you're going to get feedback from different people that you might not like, but it's the truth. So yeah, that's a little bit of me. I love what you guys are doing, because it would have helped a lot of my friends that are in the system now be able to not be where they are today if they would have had the raise the age at the time that they did not, get that chance. A lot of my friends are in the system, in the adult system, and if they would have got that second chance of just having somebody there, it would have helped. So my part, I'm willing to speak to the youth. If y'all want me to do any more speaking engagements, I would do that in person on Zoom. I'm willing to do that, because hearing somebody else's story and being like she's been there or he's been there, we're in my shoes, also help. Hearing from a younger person also helps. So yeah, that's just me.
Mariah, thank you for sharing. I'm so glad you're doing so well. I want to get you on my radio show. So watch out.
Just email me.
I will do that. So thank you for speaking. We're hoping also to hear from your mother, Nishi. Nishi, if you could take it from here.
Good evening, everyone. I am Nishi Parkinson. This is my daughter, Mariah Walker. And I just want to say thank you, daughter, for all that you've done in the community, working with people and young people and telling your voice. I want to say thank you to the committee for believing in us. The days and the hours that I walked in the juvenile system, Ms. Rachel could see the fear in my eyes as a mother, as a single mom, really trying her best to afford her daughter the best. And when trauma arises, you being a mother and working in healthcare or what have you, when that shoe is on your foot, it's a different ball game. It's a different time for you. It's like the pain is like a beast on you, and you're numb and you're hurting and you're in pain. And every person that I came across, from the detectives, from the juvenile system, the social workers that we work with, the receptionists, they were very vibrant and willing to help, and said that it will be okay. It's going to get better. Even though you're walking this journey, being fearful as a mom or scared or, don't want to ask the difficult questions, they provided me access. They afforded me value to who I was. And sometimes coming from a Black and Brown community, a BIPOC community, people of color, we have a whole different gamut of things that carry weight on our shoulders, where we don't know how to ask those difficult questions, or we may think that it's an intimidating question to even ask. Reverend Burton really spoke about the charge and calling people to action. And I'm using my voice today, not only just being a mom, but I'm using my voice as Nishi Speaks STL to raise the bar, to be the change that you want to see in the community and gain the acceptance in the community. And if you have a grassroots organization, utilize some of those dollars and collaborate with St. Louis County in those high-risk zip codes that we know that high crime happened. We know that churches are being vandalized. We know that Black Lives Matter. We know all of that, right? But if you do your part as stakeholders in the community to help the police force be able to combat some of these adversities that we have in our community, we will be able to live better. So lead by example. Lead by example. Don't just say, oh, he's the next person with his pants hanging down and she got on too tight of shorts, or she needs to go home and find a shirt. Be the voice and be the proud parent or mom to say, baby, is everything okay at home? Do you have food on the table? What size do you wear? What size shoe do you wear? Ask those questions, and ask the questions in a meaningful way. Allow their lives to be valued like yours was. We used to be teenagers. We used to run the streets. But our time of our era is a little bit different than what it was when I was growing up. The neighbors were oriented. And if you got in trouble, everybody got in trouble, all the kids in the neighborhood. But now you can't talk to the young kids. So you have to bridge the gap in a different way and make it meaningful. Don't make it negative. Hey, what type of rap music you like to listen to? Kind of get into their minds, because the Dr. Megan, she spoke about that, that frontal of that brain wave is not all there. So just be accountable for our actions as parents. And for the parents that's on the call today, the stakeholders in the community, I am just one person, but I'm willing to help afford value to our community so that we can continue to do what we do. Hopefully the governor will sign this bill. I'm big on advocacy and activist work. So this is passionate to me. My daughter's life mattered to me, and I spent 315 days in court. And she's a product of my value. She's a product of the St. Louis County juvenile system, and she made it. She's a sophomore at a HBCU. She's the former Miss St. Louis for 2019 for the National American Miss. So she has ranked and she has soared on eagle's wing as a dynamic youth, and she's still pushing. You see our future pediatric anesthesiologist, Mariah. Thank you.
Nishi, thank you so much for that. That was downright inspirational. I want to thank all the members of our panel for sharing here today. I've learned so much, and there's still a lot to learn. We're going to open things up to our virtual audience here. Now, we want to just tell people, please bear in mind that this is a public forum. It is open to the media. It is being recorded. The YouTube video of tonight's Raise the Age Town Hall will be available later this week on the court's website. That's wp.stlcountycourts.com. Now, if you have a question or comment for any of our panelists, please raise your hand by clicking on the icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We will look for you there. If I call on you, remember at that point to unmute yourself and turn on your video. I will also be pulling questions and comments from the chat room, and I will read as many of those as I can aloud and try to direct that to the right panelist. If I send this question to you and this question doesn't make sense for you, please feel free to redirect it to somebody who you think would be better to answer it. And I'm going to start off. We have already had a couple of questions that have come in to administrators via the chat function. This first one here is for Dr. Megan Schacht. Somebody is asking, would there be foundation for moving the raise the age past the 17-year-old level, since the brain does not fully develop until the early 20s? Dr. Schacht.
Um, I think there's always, like I said, it's always a developmental window, and it's not an exact science. And we as society like to have an exact line, an exact number. And I think much past 17, you start to run into other kind of legal issues and tensions around. At 18, you can
I
sign
could see that.
contracts, and you have other adult.
Tell her I'll bring her over her
Actually, Dr. Schacht, okay, I just wanted to make sure everybody else was muted other than you. I think we're back to good, so please continue.
So, I think as a society, we absolutely have a responsibility to continue to launch young adults and be aware that their brains are not fully developed. Where exactly we set that line, that's a much bigger societal question than I know how to answer.
All right, that makes sense. Here's another question. I think I'm going to send this to to Captain Guy Means. Captain Means, how do officers feel about Raise the Age? So that's the first part. And second part, are they receiving any additional training about Raise the Age and the brain development issues that accompany it? Is Captain Means still with us?
All right, he just sent me a note saying that he just got kicked off for some reason, so he's trying to get back on.
Okay, we will hopefully get him back on. In the meantime, do we have anyone here who can speak to the police perspective who'd like to jump in and take that? Any of our panelists?
Sure, I could take some of that.
That'd be great.
We have actually Captain Means and others in St. Louis County Police specifically have actually been in a venture where we have trained law enforcement officers, in particular the SROs, school resource officers in a lot of our county schools about just the brain development, how kids respond to certain situations, and just, actually it's called effective interaction with youth by law enforcement training that we put on right before the pandemic in 2019. And so I know that Captain Means, and as part of our juvenile detention alternative initiative, as well as our other equity work that we're doing with our police departments, he has been vital as to supporting that work. And just in conversation with him actually today, we talked about how his officers have to be retooled to understand 17-year-olds are no longer in that adult arena. And so we've got to treat them as kids. And so he even acknowledged that their whole department needs more training around that aspect of understanding that 17-year-olds are now kids, because it is a big switch for law enforcement. And they acknowledge that typically 17-year-olds, I mean, it's Justice Center, and they're asking for a warrant in prosecutor's office. But when you switch that to the juvenile court, there's a lot of different other things that they have to understand. Our process and our interventions are totally different compared to what the adult system is. And he supports that. And I know that the new chief over there that we've had conversations with also supports that, Chief Barton. So we look forward to really engaging and interacting with our law enforcement partners on any way to try to train them. But for sure, he's been very supportive of that.
Thank you, Rick. And Captain Means, I see you're back there. How do police officers within your department feel about Raise the Age? Are they supportive of this?
Oh, they're very supportive. I think we want to give youth a chance in the community. I think that we can help. And one thing I know is that with us doing this, it actually helps with our PAL program, our cadet program that we have. It gives them a sense of oneness. I mean, I think that youth, once they see that we're interacting and we're not trying to send them through a system, we're trying to help them stay out of the system. So I believe that law enforcement now, or we know that the young youths are our future. So we don't want to hurt their future. So we're very much on board with helping raise the age. So.
And Captain Means, do your men feel, and your women, do they feel that they have the training and are going to get the training they need in order to implement this?
Sure. I mean, as you know, that our SROs are trained to do everything within the school system of our high schools and our young grade schools. So they attend training through the summer. And like Rick said, we've hosted a training program at our St. Louis Police County Academy so that we were able to train them properly to make sure that we're working well with the youth. So they're all on board with this raised age. So.
That is great to hear. We have a question here from Mariah. Mariah, the questioner says, I have worked with young people in various areas, but I feel like many young people have difficulty defining their values. Can you help me identifying at least 3 values that you and your friends hold by the way they live and the goals they have?
3 values that me and my friends go by.
And Mariah, just one moment. Your mic is a little quiet. We're going to see if we can get that kicked up as you start talking here.
Okay.
Perfect.
The 3 values me and my friends mainly have, one of them would be judgment. We don't judge each other based off of the things that we've done or have not done or anything. Like, we're open ears. You can come to us about anything. Like, anything, we are all there to help each other. So when you have a friend group, make sure they're not there to tell your secrets to another person. That will be your main value, is to make sure that you have friends that are there to support you. A third value would be, we all are going towards one goal. We are all in college. Me and my closest friend, we're both going to medical school after our 4 years of undergrad. So try to get people that are in the same vicinity of goal ranges. Not saying like you can't have a friend that works at McDonald's. You can have a friend that works at McDonald's. But I'm just saying, make sure that they are also trying to, reach into better in things. Like, it doesn't matter where they work, but just make sure that they are hustling the same way you are, not trying to go party every weekend. Another value would be self-confidence. Just have a bunch of self-confidence in yourself. I've been through the whole depression stage and stuff like that. Just have a whole bunch of self-confidence, because the next person you think that ain't going through something is going through something either worse or something the same thing that you are going through. So just have a whole bunch of self-confidence, and I know words hurt, but just keep it pushing. I know it's hard to say that because people say that to me, but it will always work out in the end. Somebody will always be looking at you like, oh, I wish I had what she had, but you'll be going through something that they don't even know that you're going through. So we're always looking to look at somebody else's situation to validate ours, but we all going through something. We all human. So yeah.
And Miss Sarah, can I chime in for a second for the young lady or young gentleman who asked the question? I'm not sure.
Yeah, that would be great.
3 values as a parent and as a person from the community and a person that works inside of the community to help others walk through their challenges that are unexpected. Relatability, accountability. A lot of times people say that the police system or social work system has a lot of mistrust. So we have to make sure that we lead with leadership and trust overall. From the front door, when that receptionist come in and getting ready to do that intake, they're already in pieces. So that gravitation needs to be a warm, inviting feeling for that person to go ahead and thrive through the next process, because we're coming in on pins and needles. Everybody's looking at us as a parent like we did something totally wrong or we wasn't there for our child, and it's doom and darkness. So those are key values. And also, you have to have prayer in your life. I can't steer away from that, because there were many nights that that's all I had was prayer. So the line of duties that we carry and the hats that we carry in the community, look different, and I would challenge people in leadership to refrain from having the commuter mentality. I commute to work just to do a job, and I commute home back to be with my family and make it feel like it's an out of sight, out of mind feeling. So when you walk in that door every day at work, you put a new hat on so that you can embrace the next process that's going to afford you the ability to have that accountability, such as what Dr. Megan said. You know, dealing with ADHD and trauma, I can rest assured my daughter, she overcame her ADHD experiences, and now she's able to go in and talk to her pediatrician one-on-one and deal with those things that she have adversities, you know, in her life that I may not even be able to help her with, but her pediatrician can. So have that open door policy with the people that you come in contact with. And you all are doing a great job. And I want to just say thank you, and let's keep pushing.
Oh, I have something.
Go ahead.
And with kids with ADHD, it is okay to be on your meds. But once you get to a certain age, you can talk to your, nobody told me this. You can talk to your doctor and be like, I want to get off my meds or go down to a lower dosage. So just know that there's a life outside of ADHD.
Yeah.
Mariah, this next question is for you as well. What can we do as the juvenile office to minimize the fear and mistrust when parents and youth first come into our door? Any suggestions or advice for the people here on this call?
Be as friendly. Basically, act like they're your children. Like if I am, like, when I went in, they act like I was their child. Like, they were nice, they were open, they didn't pressure me, they didn't do anything. Everybody was open and nice to hear what I had to say. They didn't rush me, anything. And I would just say, when you are dealing with youth, make it where you are going back to what you went to. If you're relatable, like, I always make sure that I'm relatable to the person that I'm talking to, just because I haven't been personally in that, but I've been in some type of situation that you're probably going through. So I just say being relatable, being open and honest, and more so not acting like you care, but care. Like, if you show that person or that you actually care, then they're going to open up way more. Because when I was talking to different officers, they were like, okay, Mariah, we've been in your house 2 times. What's going on? And like, it was kind of like, okay, they actually care. Like, they actually care. It's not like okay, I'm getting the check and we're just going to see what the problem is and I'm going to go back to my office to collect my check. Like, it was more so like they actually cared. And I really do think that they did care to this day. So yeah, just care.
Yeah, we want to say kudos to Miss Rachel, because when she walked through the door, she had the hustle in the STL. You know, she asked the difficult questions. Even if she had to ask them 2 or 3 different ways, she was able to bridge the gap that Mariah so needed during that time period. And we also had another detective. We want to give a shout out to Detective Stephanie, because she led a leadership role that I don't even think I could have done it, but her questions, her motivational interviewing towards Mariah to get her to understand what the next step in the process that it would be to lead her in a great outcome. Even though she was scared, she was crying, all of that, have that relatability. That's all I can say is relatability. And she carried that from the front door to all the way to the end of our new life. This is a new life for us.
And Nishi, as you were dealing with the juvenile office, did the staff there ask and include you properly in that decision-making process?
Yeah. My phone would not stop ringing. I cannot, you're going to make me tear up. The next day, you know, you go home, you don't have your daughter with you. The officer came by to check on me. And the words that came out of his mouth that particular day, I hold true to it. That you did not fail your daughter. You did nothing wrong. And to really walk those steps with all of the officers was remarkable. Even going to court, to have someone meet you at the front door after you park your car, to have someone walk you to your car from the court to the parking lot, to say, call me or text me when you reach home. Those were the simplest things that someone could do. And just to get a hug, was really pleasing to my soul, you know, because my family had to work for themselves, and, you know, they had to go to work every day, you know, and just to have that honest morale of love really carried me those 300 days. Also, being part of the system, a lot of times people say that the system is broken. It's what you make of it. It's how you utilize the resources that are given to you. And I worked each and every last one of those resources. And Miss Rochelle will tell you, I called her, I'm like, this didn't work. What do we do next? How do we do this? Da, 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 da. She say, do this. She'll email me, do this, and I'll do it. I'll follow up with her. Follow up. That's how you can have a great outcome as well, parents. So when you follow up and being in your kids' business, that's where we need you to be. And that's where we need you to sit for that moment so that we can make sure our 17-year-olds are not tried as adults. Thank you.
Okay. Well, those have been just some great questions, and just what a good testament to some of the people here in this meeting and the work that they have done. I am not currently seeing any more questions in the chat or people who've indicated they would like to ask one themselves. Am I missing anyone? I would love, Christy, do I see your hand up?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't have a question, but I would just like to mention that the court has a lot of openings for people to work with our community. And the court pays a lot better than McDonald's. It has health insurance, it has paid holidays, it has a retirement plan. We have a lot of openings in our court and in our juvenile office, and we're really anxious to have people from the community come and work with our youth. And it's a hugely rewarding job. It's very challenging, but it's also really rewarding. So if any of you who are on this call know folks who are looking for a job that pays better than McDonald's and is really a very rewarding job, come and work for the courts, because we would love to have you.
Well, there's an invitation there. Anyone else? Anyone want to add anything to the conversation before we end this town hall?
I would just like to say thank you to everyone who has come and participated. Mariah, you and your mom, this was just fabulous to hear your story and to hear the positive attitude, the positive experience that you had matriculating through the juvenile court of St. Louis County. So kudos to you. We continue to wish you well, you and your mother, and thank you so much for participating with us. And to everyone else, on behalf of the court, I would say thank you as well for participating here this evening. We truly appreciate the input, and our doors are always open.
Judge, I think we've got some other folks that was trying to make a comment. Ms. Birdwell, I believe you had someone that was here wanting to make some statements.
I did. Mr. and Mrs. Brock are parents who've been through our system, and they were asked just to share during the Q&A session. Hopefully they're still here.
I'm still here.
Great.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you quite well.
Okay. I did have a question, first of all, before I go any further. Ben mentioned in the beginning about there was during the history that there were like about 4 or 5 states that had not adopted the raise the age yet. How are those other states coming along right now? I know we're in Missouri, we're concerned about Missouri, but from a nationwide standpoint, I'm wondering how those other states coming. Have they joined already, or is there something that they're still looking to do?
Mr. Brock, based on my recollection, I haven't paid any attention the last probably last 6 months, but I think there's still 1 or 2 states that are still have not brought in more than 17-year-olds. And can't remember. I don't know if Georgia is one of them or Texas or something. So there's still some lingering states that have not passed the same or similar legislation. So it's as any reform or any kind of major change in the law, it takes a while, and Missouri is one of the last, and I think we have to live up to our name to show me, and we've done that. So hopefully we get it done and governor signs that bill.
Yeah. And also too, I think that this is a really good step in the right direction as one of 8 children that are boys, I should say, in my family. I've had some brothers that have been involved with the court systems and things like that. And I did have a nephew that was involved in the court system too. And I think that, especially in his situation, it would have helped him back then when he was coming up, that if we had something like this in place in the state that I was living in. I'm from Mississippi, but it would have helped him in regards to that. So I really want to applaud all of you that are really championing this to bring it to the forefront, because I think it's really something that's necessary. It's really something that can really benefit a lot of the youth, because all of us know we don't always make the right decisions as we're growing up. And this has a way of helping us to know that, hey, somebody cares about us, and they know that we may not be as developed as we need to be. We may not have everything together as we need to have everything together. And this helps us to get to that place. Now, to the point of what Kim was mentioning before, my wife and I have had the privilege of being able to participate in some of the things that the court system have done. It has really helped us to help guide our son in the way that he needs to be led. And it is something that helped him to graduate from high school. He was involved with the AMSA program, Succeed program recently, and he's also been able to gain employment recently. And it's just something that has been a blessing over the time period that we were able to just participate and just have the people that would just co-labor with us. I do echo into what Maria mom said about having somebody that just cares. Big shout out to Mr. Grimes. He was one of those that took my son by the hand and really helped. And we really appreciated that. There was also some other individuals that were helping too. My son had a couple of people that were just in his grill, like we would say, in his face, that really just encouraged him on. There was a point in time that he didn't believe that he was going to finish with high school. And after he did get the courage to do it, we were able to find the right system to put him in. We were able to find the right school to put him in. I mean, it was just a lot of things that just opened up. Once we started doing the things with the court systems, we saw that there was a benefit and some things that were available to us, some resources that was available to us that we just did not know. Because I did not come through that system, and because I was one that never looked at that as being something that I was going to have to deal with, it made me look at it from a jaded perspective, if you know what I mean. But when the doors were open and I saw the hearts of people that cared, it really helped that we were able to get them into the right school. I mean, a lot of things that happened through the court system, it seemed like there was just a snowball effect, that when one thing worked, it just rolled us into another. And that's what I do see what this Raise the Age can really do. When we're able to reach out to the youth and tell them that we care, it just snowballs effects in other areas of their life, that it would just open other doors for them too. So that's what I want to share, is that just to applaud you guys for looking into this, and for whoever put it to the forefront to champion it. I just want to say kudos to you, and just thank you guys for just giving us an opportunity to also to share.
All right, that was great. Anyone else here? Anyone else want to speak?
Sorry,
All
Judge,
right.
I didn't mean to cut you off. So I didn't know if you wanted to finish up what you're doing, Judge. So.
No, I was just wanting to make sure that I thanked everybody on behalf of the court for their participation here today, and particularly Mariah and her mom, and Mr. Brock, the last gentleman now, who who spoke, because these are the kinds of outcomes that we love to hear about and that we want for the juveniles who come through our court system. We want them to have positive outcomes and positive impact on their lives so that they can lead fruitful and productive lives as good citizens.
I do have one final note before I let everybody go. This is now the end of our town hall, but if you have any further questions about Raise the Age or about anything you heard this evening, you're encouraged to contact Christy Bertelson, who's the communications director for the court. Her email is christine.bertelson@courts.mo.gov. That is Christine with a CH, christine.bertelson@courts.mo.gov. I want to say thank you to all of our participants, all the members of the audience for those great questions. That concludes our events. Thanks again and have a good evening.
Thank you.